Welcome back to another episode of the Old Cheapskate Garage, because I'm such a cheapskate. Actually, had to tear this thing back down because a buddy of mine brought up Chloe's timing gear. And I was like, yeah, I have one of those. And then he said, which notch did you put it on? So not remembering exactly and not being able to really catch it good in any of the past footage, I went through a lot, watched like 3 hours of footage and pictures and stuff. I couldn't find it. So tore it back apart, and sure enough I had it wrong. I'll show you what I did. So as you all know, this block I bought for 50 bucks, and it came with this gear set and all the pistons with new rods, new rings and new bearings. So I went ahead and I had assembled it all, but the previous owner of this block, or whoever had it before, had the keyway set on the square key. Now, what that means is that the cam timing was set 2 degrees retard. So what all that's going to do for this motor, I have no idea, but I decided to take it all apart, rotate it over, and get it lined up properly, and I'll show you that it's lined up properly now. So on the Chloe's, the rounded keyway, which I'm using right there, is for stock. And then come down here, you can see there's a circle. Drop down there, there's my other circle. So it's circle to dot, or dot to dot, however you want to call it. Now, if I wanted to go 2 degrees advance with this setup, I'd come up here and I'd key it to this, and that would be 2 degrees advance. And the only difference is that, I mean, as long as you're using any one of these points, if you're using that one, then you use that to set it up to set it up to your dot on your cam sprocket, so it's top dead center. And any one of these. But if you were to like set this, use this keyway, the triangulated one, and then use this square mark over here, you're liable to do some real big damage to your engine. And I knew I didn't have it off like too much, because I could rotate the motor over and everything was just fine rotating it over. Happy that I bought this one piece oil pan gasket. Disappointed that I used it at the same time. But now I gotta RTV back up my timing cover gasket and put it all back together and try to get this all together, because this damn motor's going in to the truck this week and come hell or high water. I did some mock-up with the transmission and whatnot, and I think I'm gonna have to cut the ears off the transmission, so that's no big deal. But for everybody out there that wants to do a V8 S10 swap and says, oh, you can't put the motor and transmission in at the same time, you got to pull the front core support out to do it, and blah 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 blah. Well, we're going to find out for this weekend if we have to or not. The worst motor that I've ever changed was a 98 F-150 with a 5.3 in it. The Triton 5.3 in it. It's young, inexperienced, and I'll tell you what, that motor came out of the top of that truck, or out of the hood, with like that much clearance on both sides, and it was tight. And actually, it was a funny story is I have in the shop here, I have all these fluorescent lights. Well, we had the engine hoist hooked to it, and all of a sudden the motor came out, let go, and the engine hoist went boom, way right up to the ceiling and smashed that light out. Glass went everywhere, all over the place. And of course you probably know this, you're not supposed to breathe in the gas from the fluorescent tubes. So we walked outside and chilled for a few minutes, and then went back in and finished pulling it out. But that was absolute worst, and that was just the motor on that one. Yeah, I researched it later. You got to pull the body off the Ford and all this other crap. And when you're working in a small space like this, you don't really think about that kind of stuff. But yeah, come hell or high water, I'm going to at least try to put this motor in this weekend. With that being said, I'm gonna go in and get some pizza because I'm hungry and it's like 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night. What's up, guys? We're gonna try to throw you into a little time lapse of ears getting chopped off the transmission, the engine getting flipped over and bolted to the transmission. Then we're gonna pause and we're gonna go to mounting the floor shifter, and then from the floor shifter, hopefully my motor mounts will be here, and a time lapse of throwing the motor into the truck. So what tool do I need first? Get them all tight. So just so everybody's clear, when you're doing a V8 swap into an S10, you need the 2.8 frame part engine mounts, and then you can buy the cheap stuff off Amazon to bolt to the motor. I didn't know this, and when you're going to get to this part, if you're going to do a V8 swap, I want you to know that getting access to the nuts that hold those mounts in is a real pain in the ass. If you're not comfortable cutting or drilling your frame, then you're going to have to take apart your suspension to get access to it. Or maybe there's some crazy weird wrench that I don't own out there that's meant to get up there and get on them. But I wish I would have known this, because I would have done this swap before I put the fuel line in, because now I got 2 3/8 hoses that I got to fight too. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So these are not the right mounts to use. I got one bolt out. Hell yeah. I got 5 more to go, and then I got to put them all back in. So what I'm doing is directly underneath the frame here, I'm drilling about a hole about yay big around, about a 1-inch hole, so I can slip a socket up through there and put on the thing, and hopefully get them all back tight again. This is probably the biggest pain in the ass part of this whole build. And now that I just said that, I probably jinxed myself, and there's probably something else lurking that I don't even know about. But this is why I'm putting it all on YouTube, so that way anybody else that wants to go racing and build an S10 on the cheap, they can, and they pretty much get a jump start on how to do it. And kind of an expectation of where they can be once they're kind of done with their project. But we're gonna fight through this. I think I got it, because we're gonna go out to dinner with Scrupulous Builds and his wife. If you haven't, check him out on Instagram. Does some killer body work. And if anybody knows where I can get one of these badges for the front that's not $50, like more like 10 or 12 or 14, put it down there in the comments. So I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to go ahead and take the starter out. Once I take the starter out, this thing will go right in. It's just the starter is down below and it sits in front or behind the motor mount up on the block. It's in the way. Here, let me show you. So you can see right there, right down here, it's hitting it. Over here, we got plenty of room, but we're hitting up back in there. And I don't like that. We got tons of room on the oil pan. Maybe I could just drop it down a little bit and have it slide in. We're gonna find out. Set you guys back up there, front row seat right there. Yeah, we're gonna have to pull the starter out. The starter was out, it would fall right into place. So I think we can do, well, we're gonna find out, but I think we can do this if you move the starter out of the way. So I'm gonna stop it right here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the starter out, and then we'll get it in place. It's going in tonight. So let me get you in here. I took off one starter bolt so the starter could swing back and forth, and it cleared it. You know, a giant head shadow out of the way there. But that was the trick. I think it's going to go in now. So there's a motor mount. There's a motor mount down in there somewhere. Kind of smashed the shit out of my air conditioner box. I'm going to have to patch that fiberglass or do a sheet metal enclosure for it. Other than that, right now all I got is the transmission supported by a it's supported by a jack. So I'm going to go and put a ratchet strap from frame rail to frame rail, and that'll come under and it'll hold the engine up, and it'll be in there while I modify the cross member. And while I'm under there, I'll show you my 2 slotted holes that I used to get up to the engine mount bolts. Got out here at about noon today, and now it's 8 o'clock, but it's in. I met my weekend goal. Now the rest of the week I could just poke at it until it's in. Fucking stoked. And as always, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, and thank you the most for sharing these videos. My idioticness in mechanicking.